Okay, what's good, ladies and gentlemen? This is a video response from your boy Juggernaut 44, responding to his boy Blow Myself Up Dude. He put out a video talking about his history of comics, and he said in that video that he wanted a response from his audience about how they got into comics. So I always do it, or at least try to do it real big. I'm trying to do a video response to that. Hope y'all enjoy it. Hope he enjoys it. Okay, my introduction in comics started with first Batman figures. This first started with stuff that wasn't for comics, but it was comic book related. My mom, she always brought me Batman figures for my birthday and for Christmas, and whenever I was a good boy. Also, my aunt used to buy me, everybody, my grandmothers, all that stuff. They buy me these Batman action figures, and these were cool, for the time. They only cost like $5 back then. They had the cape that was made of actual cloth, and you can take the cape off, and I was always taking the cape off and losing it. And yeah, it started with that. I always watched the Batman Adam West TV show. I love that. I always thought it was campy and good even at a young age, you know what I'm saying? I tuned into that. Also, the Batman movie. I guess this is really what kickstarted the '89 Tim Burton movie. I'm sure everybody loved it, even the people who criticized it. When you first saw that movie, you thought it was awesome. You know what I'm saying? I love that movie. Still resonates a soft spot with me till this day. Then I started watching the Batman animated series. And man, I can't say enough about this series. It was so good. Just about every episode was just awesome. I loved it in all its incarnations, from Batman to Beyond, to the Batman Robin, to Batman when it had Nightwing in it. I still like whenever I hear or read comic books, the voices of the characters come in my head. Like when I'm reading Batman's part in a comic book, Kevin Conroy's voice pops in my head. Whenever I'm reading Robin or Nightwing or Dick Grayson, the voice of whoever played Dick Grayson comes into my head. You know what I'm saying? It was just such a great show. I can't say enough about it. And then this is probably even more than all that, because that's Batman. Everybody loves Batman. Everybody's got a soft spot for Batman. What really got me into comic books, saying, hey, I want to read a comic book, was the X-Men '90s cartoon. Man, I can't say enough about that. The animation was great. Oh man, just about every episode, I feel awful that it's canceled and didn't have a longer run, even though it did have a long run. Just like with Batman, whenever I read an X-Men comic book, the voices of the characters pop in my head whenever I read their parts, for Wolverine, Gambit, Bishop, any of them. They got various other X-Men cartoons out, X-Men Evolution, and then Wolverine and the X-Men now, but this still doesn't hold a candle to what went down in '92 with X-Men. I also enjoyed the Spider-Man '90s cartoon. A lot of people didn't enjoy that, but I enjoyed it. I thought that was great. And the Hulk cartoon, you know what I'm saying? Those were some good cartoons. Not so much the Iron Man cartoon. I didn't really like that. The Avengers were, you know what I'm saying? But those three cartoons really helped get me into comic books and made me want to go and check them out. When I was a little kid and I used to go to my aunt to the drugstore, there was always a little comic rack, and that inspired me, because if I go in the drugstore, I will go to the rack and I see all this good artwork and all this action pack, and that really helped me get into comics and whatnot. I always ask my aunt, can she pick me up some? I just grab a few. They're all out of order. I'll be getting part 4 out of part 6 of a storyline. I didn't give a fuck. I just tried to follow it as best as I could. You know what I'm saying? That's what really got me into comics, like the '90s. the 90s runs, you know what I'm saying, and going to that drugstore, you know, I think that's why I'm more into Marvel instead of DC, because whenever I go around town, you know, this was back in the days where they had comics on newsstands and whatnot. Whenever I go around, I hardly saw any DC comics. I always saw Marvel comics. You know what I'm saying? And the DC comics that I did see were hella whack, man. It was like, you know, I would see for DC comics they had fucking Hawk and Dove go on the rack, and then I'll look over at Marvel Comics and they'll have, you know, a picture of Wolverine on the rack, and you know what I'm saying? It was like, which comic book would you pick up? You know, of course I always used to see their Superman Batman on the rack, but everybody knew about Superman Batman. Like, I never saw Teen Titans on the rack. I never saw any of that shit. You know what I'm saying? I never saw Green Lantern. And I asked my comic book store, you know, owner about that. I was like, how come back in the days on newsstand I used to see more Marvel? And he was like, because DC had bad promotion back in the days. And I was like, you know, I guess so. You know what I'm saying? That's why I'm probably so much into Marvel. Marvel probably had more promotion back then when I was a little kid. But like I said, I was into 90s runs of comics. Like, everybody talks some shit about LaField. I love LaField, you know. I loved his New Mutants, his X-Force. I hadn't really gotten into his Young Bloods, but it seemed awesome. You know, when I started getting into comics and buying it on newsstands, it was the Executioner song going on. And, you know, I love that storyline. A lot of people talk shit about that storyline. I think that storyline was off the hook. You know, I love the 90s writers like Scott Lobel, and, you know, a little bit of Steven Seagal. You know, he's a comic book writer. He's not just not that Steven Seagal, not the actor, the comic book writer Steven Seagal. Or Siegel, yeah, that's his name. Joe Kelly, you know what I'm saying? Wait a minute, that's not Joe Kelly. That's Joe Kelly. Yeah, that's the Joe Kelly that I like. You know, Jim Lee, his art was always fantastic and whatnot. You know what I'm saying? And that's why I was into Marvel. I mean, what would you pick? Would you pick Hawk and Dove, or would you pick Wolverine? You know what I'm saying? And that was what got me into comics. That's what got me into Marvel. I'm going to do another part because 11 minutes, I guess, is not enough. I guess I'm, on 7 minutes or approaching 10 minutes right now. So I'm going to do another part of this. Probably going to be 3 parts about how I got into comics and whatnot. But yeah, that's a good gist of it so far. Also, I want to mention Jim Lee. You know, his 90s run on the X-Men. You know, X-Men has been a top 10 book ever since then. You know what I'm saying? Since he got on there. You know, even when it sucked in the 90s, in the late 90s, it sucked to y'all. It didn't suck to me. Well, it kind of sucked to me. Some storylines were, like, kind of whack. And then the drawings got kind of out of proportion and shit. But, yeah. All that's good. Okay, I'm going to do another part to this. Peace out.